Okay. My name is Bojan Tudosiewicz, and together with Natasha, we will moderate this session. So first of all, it's great honor and pleasure to chair this session, which is devoted to an important topic, and especially because we have such a impressive list of participants here. So just a bit about the reasons behind this, organizing a session like this. So this whole conference is devoted to Balkans, studying Balkans in comparative perspective. So it both implies studying the Balkans in comparison within this region and with the outside world, so to say, but also to joining researchers from the Balkans to comparative, various comparative projects. ESS is obviously one very important project and who helped organize this. But we want to take a look at other possibilities to cooperate and to cooperate in connection with the various other European and global projects, because that will as well contribute to both of these goals. So in this session, we have representatives from several of comparative projects and also from several institutions that are dealing with promoting cooperation. So I guess we will now, and at the end of the session, will be richer with the knowledge of how can cooperation be promoted better in the future. And for future participants in these collaborations, I think it would be particularly interesting to hear a bit more about how these other comparative projects work, what it takes to join them, and how they operate. So I think that this will be enough for the beginning from me, and I will give the floor to Natasha, and then we can start.
Okay, thank you, Bojan. My name is Natasha Krivokapic, and I come from University of Montenegro, and now representing a regional coordinator of ESS in Montenegro. Now we will start with our first panelist. I'd like to invite Professor Albert Simkus. He's the first speaker of our session, Research Infrastructures and Synergies. Professor Simkus comes from Norwegian University of Science and Technologies from Trondheim in Norway. And he will talk about cross-national comparison of attitudes based on the Southeast European Social Survey project of 2003 to 2004 and its importance for future ESS researches. Please, Professor Simkus, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I find myself in a little bit of a funny position here relative to others in that I want to talk about a research project which is somewhat out of date based on surveys done in 2003 to 2004. But as you'll see, the project was pretty ambitious and accomplished a lot of things which would be difficult to do now, but at the same time, I was very interested in this conference to see how things had developed since we did our project. I've been back to the region probably roughly every 5 years since the project wound down financially, but I don't have as good of a view about what's happening right now, as I had earlier, and I was really quite curious about developments that we were very lucky to get a large amount of funding from the Norwegian government through the Norwegian Research Council for a project from 2001 through 2004. As you'll see, there were some, I think, quite good aspects to this project. We had problems continuing. The second problem with linking to all of you is that we sort of just missed our linkage to the European Social Survey, that we had to work on finalizing our questionnaires in 2002, 2003, which was just when preparations were being made for the first wave of the ESS. So the situation was that I had been very interested in trying to have some solution of the problem that most of the countries of the Western Balkans had been left out of the major social science comparative research programs. Now, that's not true of the World Values Survey so much. They were able to continue surveys in these countries. But I had worked a lot with the ISSP data for international comparisons, and the ISSP wasn't represented in the Western Balkans. To a degree, eventually Slovenia was in the Eastern Balkan, Bulgaria. But between these countries were really left out, and being able to do comparisons wasn't possible. And just to talk personally a little bit about my interest and perspective, I started out doing my dissertation on Hungarian social mobility. I was a Wisconsin social mobility researcher and interested in social mobility in state socialist societies, and worked out going to the Central Statistical Office in Budapest because Hungarian data were the best available for studying state socialist societies at that time. And then gradually over years, extended comparisons to Poland, Czechoslovakia at that time, and Bulgaria. It was not really possible before the end of state socialism to have good surveys in Romania or to have much cooperation with the GDR. But this was my experience, and also did some work with Yugoslavia. There was a large all Yugoslav survey done in the late 1980s. There were actually a couple of them, and working with Peter Jambrecht and Nico Tosh, I did some analyses. We published a paper, and then there were various changes in my career, and at a later point I found myself teaching at the world's northernmost university, at the University of Tromsø, on an island well north of the Arctic Circle. And more or less by chance, a colleague couldn't attend a meeting about research proposals for this kind of research. And so I went, and suddenly I realized that I had contacts and could imagine quite an ambitious project that would be very well funded. And so we did something that was pretty unusual. And so I want to describe this quickly and then talk about the topics that are part of the title here, about how this is related to synergy and the development of infrastructure. And there were a lot of things that became obvious to me with this experience that I wondered how much they've changed. Listening to some people, maybe not as much as I had hoped, but I was quite interested in seeing what the developments were. So, first of all, in terms of the project and synergy, you know, synergy always used to seem to be a good word to include in proposals, and sometimes it was sort of stretching things for it to be true, but it actually was, in that we had the idea of organizing together both an educational program for bringing students from the Western Balkan countries up to Tromsø for 3 or 4 months to learn survey data analysis, at the same time that we were preparing to do large surveys in each of their countries. And we hoped that they would be able to participate in the analyses as soon as the data was available for their countries, along with their advisors and the senior level collaborators that we had from each country. So the synergy was that if we had done just the surveys, we wouldn't have had the benefit of everything that we could learn from the students, both before we did the surveys and after we did the analyses. And we wouldn't have had the contacts and actually friendships with our colleagues in Southeast, in the Western Balkans. So each of these helped the other. The education was helped by having the data from these countries, and the research was aided quite a bit by the contacts with the students who also helped with conducting the survey. So this was a case, I think, of where synergy was quite true and relevant and successful. I'm going to briefly show you a couple of screens of what we did in the survey. I know I'm going to throw up some tables that are going to have a lot of numbers in them, and this is going to be confusing, but please just look at the few little things that I'm pointing out, and we'll quickly go on. So don't try to take time to comprehend everything. So the first thing that I want to point out is that in comparison with a lot of surveys, we really had fairly large sample sizes. We were able to afford large samples. And as part of this, we were interested not only the national comparisons between what we can call countries perhaps, but also the internal divisions, because as somebody in the earlier panel was saying, that these countries are really quite different from each other. The region is not homogeneous. Well, the same thing is certainly true within the countries as well. And so if you look at the sample sizes, it might seem strange that, well, why did Bosnia and Herzegovina get 6,000 cases, whereas most of the others got a couple of thousand? Well, the reason was that we essentially treated Bosnia and Herzegovina as 3 different countries and 3 different samples for 3 different populations. And the same thing was done to a certain degree also. In the case of Macedonia, of course, the differences between ethnic Albanians and Macedonians, Northern Macedonians perhaps these days, excuse me if some of this is, the labels are out of date, but we're very interested in that difference. And so to make sure that we had good estimates, we oversampled ethnic Albanians by a factor of 2. We had an awful lot of problems explaining to people that I was really surprised didn't understand that the survey wasn't terribly biased because we got twice as many Albanians if you were doing comparisons between Albanians and Macedonians. But in any case, we were taking samples that separated groups within these. And it broke down within countries like so. So in Montenegro, we were able to separate, and this is a very ambiguous identity. This is self-identified ethnicity. And the proportion of people who identify as Serb or Montenegrin in Montenegro has changed over time. So this is a little bit ambiguous. But in any case, we had enough cases in all of these categories within countries to be able to get estimates for subgroups. And then here we had indices of, and I won't go into the questions of ethnic intolerance, nationalism, authoritarianism, general traditionalism, and so on. And then these are separate multiple regressions with dummy variables for the categories. And I'll just point out that as you might expect, the differences by education were the strongest. The reference category is for 12 years of education. Then next, we had the effects of belonging to the different ethnic groups within countries, controlling for the earlier demographic variables. And there's considerable variation within countries, of course, between groups. If you look, across this, the asterisks don't mean very much because those are all based on comparisons to Serbs, which are the reference category. But with the standard errors, you can get a sense of the confidence intervals. And the only point I'll make from this, I want to make out of this is that not only, of course, are there very big differences between national states or political states, but very big differences between ethnic groups. And this is the thing where even if the European Social Survey is expanded to all of these countries, it will be difficult to have sample sizes that allow quite so much work on groups within countries. But of course, it would be wonderful to have European Social Survey quality data for all of these countries. Gradually, the group of countries included has increased. And I'm going to skip through all of that. And let's see, I hope that, let's see, that is, okay, so screen sharing is off. So what did we run into? In terms of infrastructure, there are two sort of main directions that were problematic. One was that, of course, on the top end of resources for being able to manage all of these files and to merge the files and clean the data and so on, we were really very understaffed, and it was very hard to have the range of expertise in technical issues that the European Social Survey is able to do, quite well. And I think really at the time that we were doing this, if you can recall conditions around the year 2000, 2000, 2001 in that region, it would not have been possible to do surveys on the level of scientific precision of the European Social Survey in general. The things like the availability of people who are able to code occupations is a big problem. People who are technically able to merge files and clean data and so on is short. And so such a project would be greatly aided by the resources that the European Social Survey has, up above in the level of integrating the data sets, making them available and so on. On the lower level, there were a lot of problems with infrastructure with regard to the development of expertise in the kinds of institutions that you need for being able to do these kinds of surveys. And here briefly, I mean such things as it's important to have a good central statistical office and a central statistical office which cooperates with social scientists. It's good to have good people doing quantitative survey research in the national research institutes, in the universities and so on. And it's very difficult to have enough of such people. And as much as we were able to visit all of the capitals, where we had collaborators, the resources were really very poor and difficult. And there are a lot of things that it really takes some experience to learn in doing the surveys. I'm getting a little bit long on time. Let me quickly make just a couple of little things that I discovered that I'll mention. probably most of you already know this. When you want to increase the sample size, like we wanted to, especially in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you run into a problem that most of the survey organizations are used to doing samples of 800 to 1,200 cases, and they really don't have the interviewers and staff for being able to suddenly be able to do surveys of 2,000 respondents. So if you double the number of cases, theoretically you reduce your standard errors and you have more confidence in your estimates, but these are based on hiring temporary interviewers, and the temporary interviewers aren't as experienced and reliable as permanent staff are, so you lose in that direction. And then one other thing that people, I don't hear mentioned very often is we were asking a lot of very personal questions on moral values, religiosity, and things like that. And it's very helpful to have a variable for how many people were in the room when the interview was being carried out. If you're interviewing somebody in the wintertime in a lot of these countries, people's answers may be quite different if the whole family through 3 generations is in the same house and maybe in the same living room when you're asking these questions. And in a couple of countries where we asked how many people were in the room, there are really measurable effects. So there are a lot of these little things which are helpful, and it's difficult if they can't be passed on. Well, in any case, excuse me for going past my time. I'll be interested in your comments and what I can learn from you. But the big thing I was wondering is how much some of these things have improved. I'm really glad to see more countries included in the European Social Survey. I'm sorry that sometimes they're included some years and not in other years. And some places like Bosnia and Herzegovina really have very great difficulties being included at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Stemkas, for giving us the review of the research that you conducted. You said your research was conducted in 2002, but the data are never outdated, so we can always use the results of your research. Thank you. Bojan?
Yeah, I also wish to thank you for this presentation. I hope we'll have a chance to talk more about it, because I'm very interested in how that worked and all the details. But now I would like to introduce Ksenia Kizilova. She comes from the headquarters of the World Values Survey, and this is one of the most known comparative studies in social sciences. So I'm sure this will be very useful for us to hear something from inside about it. So please.
Thank you so much, Bojan. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, or good morning for those who are joining from the other part of the world. Let me please start by saying that I'm really glad to participate in this conference organized by the Western Balkans Regional Network of the European Social Survey. It's not only a possibility to familiarize you better with the World Values Survey, but it's also a great opportunity for us to learn more from you, from the European Social Survey, whom we truly admire for your success and, of course, for your methodological advancements. The World Values Survey, similar probably to other survey research programs, combines 2 elements. First of all, it's a research program which is dedicated to the study of values, and we interpret values quite broadly in the WBS. Our questionnaire features items on social and political values, but also attitudes about religion, ethics, happiness, well-being, tolerance, xenophobia, migration, corruption, media consumption, political culture, and many other topics. Basically, there are really broad possibilities for analysis using the WS data. The focus of our study is how these values and attitudes change over time, or probably they don't change, remain stable, and how this affects social, political, and economic development of the societies. Secondly, the World Values Survey is also a community of researchers, an association which has its members and its governance. Members is granted both to the research partners from the ongoing round and also the past rounds, and by today the double association has probably close to 1,000 members. Three main features which make the WS project an attractive research infrastructure to join, and also what makes the WS data so widely used by social and political scientists around the world, is first of all the broad geographical coverage. By now, the World Value Survey has been conducted in a bit over 120 world countries, and this set of data is close to representing the values and opinions of almost 95% of the world population. Since it is one and the same questionnaire that is surveyed by all countries in one wave, this widens possibilities for analysis in terms of geography substantially. Basically, this allows to put the developments in any studied country into a global comparative perspective. Also, what the World Value Survey project offers is a great variation of countries in terms of their income, and we have in our data set the poorest countries of the world, such as Tajikistan, Ethiopia, or Yemen, and also the richest countries such as Qatar, Singapore, or Kuwait. Also, we offer great variation of countries in terms of types of political regime, from full democracies to full autocracies, in terms of quality of democracy, and so on. The second important feature why the WS data has been so useful for scholars around the globe, and as you can see, our data is downloaded by close to 1 million unique users per year, is the time series format of the study. The survey is organized in waves conducted every 5 years, and for many of our indicators, we have solid time series going back to 1990s and 1980s. Happiness, life satisfaction, or social trust, these are just a few examples of indicators which we can trace back to 1980s. And finally, that is I already spoke briefly about, is the very broad thematic coverage of the study. Given the overall aim of the WSSation to facilitate the advancement of social sciences and to make survey data accessible in low-income and developing countries for students for teaching purposes, in every wave, our questionnaire is a comprehensive survey tool that includes questions referring to substantial number of domains, both of public and private life. If you look a little bit back into the history of the WS, it has grown out of the European values study, and we continue working closely with the US partners, including our currently ongoing round, which we plan to finish next year. Starting from mid-1990s, the WS survey has been replicated every 5 years, and this is the schedule which we are following till today. So after this wave is finished in 2021, it's likely that in 23 to 25, we have our next wave planned. The major geographical expansion in the WS took place in mid and late 90s when we included countries from the former Soviet Union and also former communist republics, and also countries in Eastern Europe. And this is the timing when Balkan countries have joined the World Value Survey. Later on in 2000s and most recently after 2014, after the Arab Spring, we have increased our presence in Sub-Saharan Africa and also in the Middle East. If you look at the Balkans, in the World Value Survey, there was a quite good survey effort made in mid and late 90s. Since 2005, and in the most recent round, which we have been conducting in Europe in cooperation with the European Value Study, it is primarily the EVS surveys that are conducted in your countries. So in terms of overtime trends analysis, one would need to start looking into the EVS, into the WS data for the 90s, and later continue with looking into the EVS data. There is a quite substantial number of indicators between the two programs that overlap, but of course, for the ongoing survey round, and we still have 1 year to go in this wave, and for the future rounds, one of our plans would be not only to expand the World Value Survey to new countries, but also to find new partners in those countries which we used to survey, but where this time series was interrupted. And we'll be really happy to receive expressions of interest from Western Balkan countries. So how the World Value Survey is working, how it is organized. We tend to identify the WS as a collaborative research program. It combines both the central coordination functions. We have a central core team, but at the same time, our national survey teams, they experience substantial level of independence, flexibility, both in terms of sampling, in terms of possibility to add additional questions, selecting the survey fieldwork period, or organizing dissemination events. How this works in practice, this model. First of all, the World Value Survey Association, it's not an informal group. The organization has an official registration. It is an international nonprofit research NGO. We have our legal seat in Sweden. Activities of the WS are regulated by the Constitution, with the most recent version being adopted in 2014. According to the Constitution, the highest decision-making body remains the General Assembly, which consists of the representatives of all participating countries. So it's a quite pretty much straightforward and very democratic structure. Every country or every territory involved into the WBS has one vote in the General Assembly and has a possibility to participate in the governance of the association. Members of the General Assembly elect the central governing body, the Executive Committee. Any principal investigator in the WS also has a possibility to be nominated for these elections and subsequently be elected in the EC. The Executive Committee meets around 1 or 2 times per year, and the everyday survey, financial, administrative, and research activities of the WS are overseen by the Secretariat, which is directed by myself. The Scientific Advisory Committee is also elected by the General Assembly for a period of 6 years, and this body provides consultancy and advice on research and methodological aspects. Most importantly, these colleagues are involved into the assessment of our sampling plans for all countries before the fieldwork commences. And likewise, with the Executive Committee, any of our PI or member, leader of the research team has a possibility to be elected into the Scientific Committee, provided that he or she gets enough votes. This is how the governance structure looks, our model. In addition to the General Assembly and the 2 elected committees, we also have our data archive, which is located in Madrid in Spain. Colleagues at the data archive are also managing our database, but also our website and our online analysis software. Starting from 2015 in the World Value Survey, we have been expanding our membership portfolio, and we introduced new forms of membership, that is institutional membership for organizations. And secondly, we introduced regional hubs. These are key regional partners who would support us in our process of geographical expansion of the project. At the moment, we have regional hubs in Latin America, in Northern Europe, and the former Soviet Union, Eurasia, and we hope to get more regional partners in the foreseeable future. So how one can become a member of the World Value Survey? Again, the process is quite simple. The main requirement is that members of the World Value Survey need to be engaged into the implementation of the World Value Survey. We differentiate between the role of the principal investigator, who is the leader of the team, but also other members of the team or colleagues from the data collection agency, if there were several organizations involved into the implementation of the survey in one country. As a rule, in every wave, there is only 1 survey conducted per country. Therefore, the only limitation is that we cannot accept new members from the same country if this country has already been surveyed in this wave. In practical terms, the procedure of membership is quite simple. It's only a membership application and a sampling plan for the new wave, for the survey that need to be submitted to the WS to be considered for becoming a World Value Survey partner in a particular country. And we offer also formal mechanism for formalization of the membership. These are cooperation agreements or memorandums of understanding. Members of in the World Value Survey do not necessarily all need to be universities. We have members coming both from academic and non-academic sectors. So there are really different types of organizations whom the World Value Survey is happy to welcome as our members. Given the quite substantial length and complexity of our questionnaire, and I will speak about it in a moment, what we require is that all our members, they need to have at least several years, 5 to 10 years of experience of working in the survey research domain, because totally new teams who do not have this experience, they usually tend to struggle with conducting the World Value Survey quite a lot. And now I invite you to look very briefly at the survey process itself. As we said already, the survey is conducted, survey is organized into waves. Wave is conducted every 5 years. The average wave duration is 3-4 years, and we are of course working very hard to make it shorter, but especially this time with the pandemic, the fieldwork has been delayed, and initially we planned to finish in July this year, but at the moment the survey is prolonged by 1 year more. So it is at the end of 2021 that we'll be finishing the current round. There is a core questionnaire that is developed in every wave, and all survey members, all members of the WS are obliged to apply it fully. At the same time, all our teams have a possibility to include additional questions or modules of questions or regional modules of their interest into the questionnaire. So there is again some flexibility in terms of the questionnaire. We don't have rotating modules like in ESS, but we have a certain number of questions which are repeated from wave to wave. This is necessary to maintain the time series format of the project, and around 40% of questions in every questionnaire are new questions. The process of designing new questionnaire is quite open. We open calls for the proposals of new questions and new topics for the international academic community, but also all our survey members are invited to propose questions for consideration for the inclusion into the next questionnaire of the World Values Survey. Here you can see which topics are covered by the currently ongoing 7th survey round. The average questionnaire length in the World Values Survey is around 300 questions. Some waves have been a little bit shorter, some waves have been a little bit longer, but 300 is the mean. In terms of the survey mode, it is still the face-to-face interview that remains the main method of data collection. The reason for this is not the high level of conservatism in the World Values Survey, but the questionable quality of samples for online and telephone and other alternative interview modes that can be used in primarily developing countries. And I would say that at least 2/3 of surveys that we conduct, they are located in developing countries. Of course, given the current situation with the pandemic and the growing costs of the data collection, we are reconsidering this paradigm, and probably the whole public opinion research domain is doing the same at this time. So in future, we expect to see greater number of online surveys and mixed mode surveys in the World Values Survey. If you look at this round, the only country who used the telephone survey is the United States, but this was done in combination with the online panel. There are several examples of mixed mode surveys. Example of non-OECD country who used mixed mode is Malaysia. They combined online and face-to-face interviews. And postal surveys are traditionally used in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. Canada is also doing an online survey at the moment. For the rest of countries, this is primarily face-to-face interview, either with a printed questionnaire or with the tablets. In terms of sampling, while we aim, of course, for the close implementation of the existing good practices, and the European Social Survey has been really offering a good example in this, there is also a number of adjustments that we are forced to make given the situation on the ground. In all our countries, the requirement is to use a random probability national-wide representative sample. We don't accept quota sampling. We don't accept voluntary or convenience samplings, of course. But a few examples of limitations which I can give is, for example, shortage and lack of access to official statistics. For example, in Lebanon, the last census took place in 1923. So there's no official state data on the composition of the population. And the team who did our survey in Lebanon, they have their own, had to collect their own data about the population. In China, also access to the precise statistical information is quite difficult, and the type of sampling that is used in China is geospatial sampling. In some countries with poor security situations, such as Iraq or Venezuela, the different type of limitation is that, for example, we are not able to insist on the high number of revisits because of the fear of the health and safety of our interviewers. Also, in some non-democratic countries, state authorities not only required to approve the questionnaire, but also very often the sample. And there are examples. For example, recently we did a survey in Myanmar where we have been instructed that certain parts of the country must be excluded from the sample. So these are those unfortunate things which we faced when conducting these surveys outside of developed or OECD world. The World Value surveys are funded through diverse sources. This includes funding raised centrally by the World Value Survey Association. Usually this funding is reserved for low income and low middle income countries, and usually around 40% of surveys in every wave are funded centrally. In other countries, in high, middle, and high income countries, it is usually the task of the research team and the principal investigator to raise the necessary funding. Of course, we support them through this process. I should add that in the World Value Survey, there are no membership fees or no other payments to be made to the WB Association. So any funding that is raised by the survey team in the country remains fully the disposal of this team. Here you can see examples of some of our core funding partners in this round. The main benefit that both our funding partners, our institutional and individual members, is that they can enjoy the early access to our data. The World Value Survey practices so-called embargo, and in every wave until the decided date, this is the end of the wave or the agreed date for the data publication. This is usually up to 3 years from the beginning of the wave. The data can be accessed only by the members of the survey teams. And this is the period when they can benefit from this unique access and write publications, analytical reports, policy documents, or whatever they wish. Since in this session we speak about the cooperation between research programs, I would like to add that, as you probably have already seen, we have a quite successful experience of working together with the European Values Study in Europe. And we have recently published a new data set. It's a joint EVS-WS data set. This data set features data for around 190 overlapping variables. This is almost 130 individual interviews conducted in these waves. So far, we cover 79 countries. This is our midterm deliverable because the fieldwork phase was interrupted by the pandemic. So we hope to have the final data set out next year. And I will stop with this slide by presenting you another our deliverable. This is one of the main analytical outputs of the World Value Survey project, the World Cultural Map. This map, again, this is the provisional version of this year, and the final will be available next year together with the end of the wave. This map shows the position of survey countries on 2 major dimensions of cross-cultural variation in the world. And here on the right side, you can also see a link to our website. At our website, you can read in more detail about the theoretical background behind this map, also the calculations procedure, how this map can be produced. You can also see that quite a number of Western Balkan countries are present here. This is primarily the European Value Study data from the recent round. I will be happy to answer your questions in the Q&A session, but also you are most welcome to contact me by email. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot for this presentation. It's great to have this nice overview of the project. Now I would like to invite Dave Howell, and we will hear now about another interesting global and comparative project, the comparative study of electoral systems.
Thank you for having me here today. I have a short presentation about the CSES, about our origin and what the project is, about who participates and what it means to be a collaborator. One second. So CSES was founded in 1994. There were a lot of national election studies. This was especially true in Europe. And they realized they were all running post-election studies and there might be some value for cooperation. So CSES brings together today about 60 to 80 different countries to run a common survey. And they add to that survey data set not only the post-election surveys with microdata about respondents, but macro data about the electoral system and institutions and the general context that the elections occur within. The core questions we're looking at are big questions in science, and especially political science. But within political science, we're interested in how variations in the system impact individual attitudes and behaviors. And we have a special focus, like most election studies, on voting and turnout. So does the system you find yourself within and the choices that you have affect your decision whether to vote and impact how you vote? In brief, CSES module is a 10 to 15 minute questionnaire with a specific substantive theme. It changes every 5 years, and we choose every 5 years because elections happen in most countries in the world every 5 years, so that gives everybody a chance to be included. We have a common core of information that we ask about, much like the WB-ESS, which is about 40% of our survey, and includes things like party preferences and vote and leader and party evaluations. But we have a new substantive theme each module as well. So in module 1, back in 1994, it was about accountability and representation. Currently, we're in CSES module 5, which is about populism. And we're starting to release data on that, but we're also in the middle of designing a new module 6. So each CSES module is included in high quality post-election studies around the world in different nations. We're just a small part of those election studies. Election studies can run up to 45 minutes or so in length, and we're a part of that. And next year will be the first year that we collect CSES module 6. All of our data is free and without embargo. Every planning committee member, every collaborator receives it at exactly the same time as any citizen in the world. They can download it from our CSES website. There's no membership, there's no cost. We have central funding for our secretariat operations, but our collaborators fund their own election studies. We've had tens of thousands of persons download each of our data sets. We have over 7,000 people on our email list to receive information about the study when data is immediately available. And we have over 1,100 entries in our CSES bibliography. From the Western Balkans, we have the following countries that participate. Over time, we've had 196 different election studies from 55 unique countries to deposit data. In the Western Balkans, we've had a study from Albania and from Croatia, 2 surveys, most recently from Montenegro, and a survey from Serbia. You can see at the bottom, we have surveys from other countries regionally, such as Bulgaria, Greece, Romania, and Slovenia. To be a collaborator on CSES, it requires a couple of different things. One is you have to raise your own funding for your local survey. Quite likely you're running an election study anyways, and you want to consider CSES as part of that. While we don't provide central funds for data collection, we do offer letters of support, proposal text and ideas. Sometimes we can network you with local scholars to work on joint funding applications. But when you run the survey, it requires meeting our data collection quality guidelines. We require that all studies be post-election because we're interested in why people vote the way they do, so you need to know how they vote. We require a sample that is probability based at all stages and has good country coverage, and so is nationally representative. But what are the benefits of being a CSES collaborator? One is you get to network with other CSES scholars. We have meetings of our entire scholar community every 5 years, and we have other opportunities in between that. You can share ideas and methodologies and projects. You can share results from the projects that you run. You get a say in CSES governance. You can be a collaborator on the project and vote on the module and how the project runs. You can be elected as a planning committee member. Goran Kular from Croatia was a planning committee member on our last planning committee for module 4. You get credit on the CSES website and an international profile as a result, so it has reputational benefits. Perhaps most importantly, it gets more use of your data. You'll no longer have primarily local scholars and country-specific scholars looking at your data, but you'll be included in comparative studies across the world. So you can see how your local study data compares to that of other nations and why you see the differences that you do. You'll get invitations to the events I mentioned, and we also have many presentation and publication opportunities. We have special journal articles that we arrange. We have working sessions of scholars where there are presentations. We have a book series with Oxford and a number of other things that we do to provide value to you as a CSES collaborator. So how do you become a collaborator? There's no formal application process by intent. We're looking to have the highest quality scholars in each country that actually also have the ability to run very high quality surveys. So we seek out those collaborators through our existing networks, also by word of mouth and by recommendation. I'm familiar with a number of the people on this panel and also on the conference itself, and some of them we're already working with. For instance, Bojan Todosijevic is our collaborator in Serbia, and Olivera is our collaborator in Montenegro. But we are seeking to expand our network, not only in the Western Balkans, but in the region. So if you're interested to apply to be a collaborator, you can speak to a planning committee member. The list is on our website. You can let Bojan or Olivera know that you're interested and they can put you in touch, or you can email me at the CSES Secretariat at cses.umich.edu. So that's sort of an overview of the project. I wanted to keep it short in order to leave time for questions, but I'll hang around for the rest of the session, and I look forward to talking to you more as the panel continues. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dave, for this informative presentation. And Natasha, would you like now to present our next speakers? You're muted. Good.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me that. I have a pleasure now to announce our Ministry of Science, Sanja Damjanovic. One of the goals of Montenegro Ministry of Science is to reinforce cooperation with large research infrastructures. So this ministry gave a crucial support for establishment of ESS research in Montenegro. Mrs. Sanja Damjanovic is also chairperson of the Southeast European International Institutes for Sustainable Technologies. Mrs. Damjanovic, please take the floor.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. Let me say it's really my pleasure to participate in this event. Today in Montenegro, the new government is going to be elected, and therefore here in my slide, I only kept the function as a chairperson. This is the intergovernmental committee, but yes, still I'm a Minister of Science in Montenegro. I really very much enjoy the last 4 years. Let me say that I'm really happy to participate in this event, which is dedicated to Western Balkan. And when you talk about Western Balkan, I always had a special emotion, and therefore I'm extremely happy to show you our journey to establish pan-European research infrastructure in our region, in the region of Southeast Europe, so-called CEAST project. So just let me see. Okay, the main mission of this project is to promote collaboration between science, technology, and industry based on the technology transfer from renowned European centers like CERN and others, but also to provide a platform for improved education of young scientists and engineers. Another very important mission of this project is to foster cooperation between the countries in the region, since we still have quite a lot of tension in our region. So due to recent history of 1990s, all our scientific economic activities slowed down. As a consequence, our region ever since suffered from strong brain drain, which is one of our largest economic loss in our region. But when I talk about Western Balkan, I want to remind people that in the past, the Western Balkan had a strong period of technological development, and there are plenty of great examples. For example, Yugoslavia was founder of CERN in 1954. At that time, Austria was not founder of CERN. We had 3 research infrastructures older than CERN at that time. But now, how to return back to this great tradition, how to slow down brain drain? The most effective way, if not the only way is to establish large-scale facility based on the latest technology. So what is the SEAS project? It is facility for tumor therapy and biomedical research with protons and heavy ions, which today presents the most modern, most powerful method to treat cancer. It's completely something new. It started in Europe, in Japan at the same time, and presently there are only 12 machines of this type in the world, only 4 in Europe, and this picture here show you the first machine which was realized in Europe in 2009, hit Heidelberg. However, our SEAS project is not going to be just fifth in Europe. Our SEAS project is going to be unique for many, many reasons. I will come in a moment to explain for that. So SEAS has pan-European dimension. Why? Fighting against cancer is top priority for our society. It is one of our largest social health challenges, and it's overdue to develop advanced cancer therapy with ion beams and isotopes. The other objective of this project is to build international cooperation and scientific capacity in Southeast Europe. And what we achieved within this short time, it's unbelievable. We have now support from 18 renowned European centers, including CERN, GSI, 4 existing clinics together with universities, institutes, and clinics from our region. I want to say why we are unique and why we are going to be the European Center of Excellence for Cancer Research, because our SEAS project is going to have comprehensive dimension. 50% of the beam time will be dedicated to research. No matter that 50% of the beam time will be dedicated to research, we will be able to treat about 500 patients with this most modern method. Just to tell you how powerful it is, this is the only method to treat, for example, pregnant women, and the method which is used in Europe to treat children. Other important, unique selling points of our project is multidisciplinary research. Today, we are talking about a new EU framework program, Horizon Europe. One of the mission is cancer research. But if you look at cancer research in Europe, it's completely diluted and it's competitive. So our goal is to have a SEAS, one single site research infrastructure in this respect. Another important point is breakthrough in technology. And we are very happy that CERN is behind us, and CERN is now coming back, and we are going to be unique, and we will be in technology much more above all the presently existing projects, including Japan. Third, very important unique point of our project is science diplomacy. After CERN in Geneva and Sesame in Jordan, SEAS is going to be the third concrete research infrastructure with a mission of science diplomacy. I'm not going to tell you about details about this multidisciplinary research. I'm just going to flash to you. I mentioned breakthrough in technology. We are not going to be like presently existing machines of this accelerator superconducting with more magnets, but with superconducting magnets and many, many features in technology important, and technology bring you to good things to society, because with boosting technology, we will be able to treat with this method much larger number of the tumor types. Science diplomacy, I will mention in few later slides how much we got political support practically from everywhere, from the region, but also widely from Europe. And I'm very proud that Switzerland provided us recently official political support to establish a science diplomacy roadmap for our project. So everything starting beginning 2017, and just in a few months, we had a great event on the ground of CERN. We had 10 ministers signing declaration of intent. And you know, at CERN, every day politicians are coming, but this was unique for CERN because at the same day you had 10 ministers on the same ground. And in 2019, stronger political support was provided by signing memorandum of cooperation by 6 prime ministers at the occasion of 6th summit of the Berlin process in Poznan, Poland. And here are the candidate members for this research infrastructure. These are countries from Slovenia all down to Greece. At this moment, Croatia and Greece are holding observer status. At the beginning, we thought everything will be hard, how we can now move from our region, how people can believe us that we can do something pan-European from our region, coming out from our region idea. But look here, this impressive list. We had strong support from European Commission. European Commission provided us financial support to start the second development phase of the project, design phase. And recently we show how competitive we could be. Our project, EU Horizon 2020, was approved among so high-level competitive projects, but we were among the top evaluated. So we got another 5 million to finish design phase. And not only that, we managed also to now send application for S3 roadmap. I mentioned Switzerland. And from scientific point, we are in the best hands because CERN and GSI Institute in Darmstadt decided to host this design phase of our project. So scientifically, we cannot fail because of this great support and cooperation. We got also support from Atomic Energy Agency. But what is really now nice, we are in the heart of Europe because recently, and thanks to the Commissioner Gabriel, a new innovative agenda for Western Balkan was published. And you look here in this picture, CEAS project is now among the leading project in research innovation in the Western Balkan. And not only that, CEAS project is now part of economic investment plan for Western Balkan. So our chance is there. I just show you from a scientific point, I don't want to tell you how much we all achieve, but what I'm really, really happy that for the first time from our region, we have a project which is going, hopefully, to be part of the S3 Roadmap 2021. It is interesting also to mention that in S3 Roadmap 2018, there was no one research infrastructure project on health. So also what is very, very nice, it is we are going to make also concept of the green infrastructure, and it's completely, our project is also in line with EU policies of the Green Deal and of course Horizon Europe Cancer mission. I show you here timeline. I'm going fast because I want to respect this 10 minutes time. So we managed with the help of all renowned scientists to create a concept study. It's a document of 100 pages which is published as a CERN Yellow Report. We started design phase thanks to European Commission support. We apply for S3 roadmap, site selection. We expect site selection until the end of next year. And here, Switzerland is going to help us to moderate all these difficult decisions. One of that will be definitely site selection. We expect in 2023 to start construction of this facility. If we are lucky, if our dream becomes reality, we will be able in 2028 to treat the first patient from our region. For CEAS, up to 240 million is required. I would say only 240 million. We know that research infrastructure are more costly to guarantee competitivity in Europe. And given that is completely accepted that our region needs political economical help, we really rely on multiple sources of financing, EU structural, cohesion funds, IPA funds, some contribution, of course, from the member states. But as now being part of economic investment plan, I think also Western Balkan can assure some structural funds. We have also EU countries of interest. I mentioned that this is going to be green infrastructure. Our region is such rich in green energy, and so we want to, our operational costs for energy will be green energy, and even its single site facility, the benefit will be for everybody because we are going also to establish several hubs, and one of that would be green digital IT hub. So I come now to show you here 3D figure of our project. And now I come to my last slide. And this is that research infrastructures have proven to have a powerful social economical impact as a multinational venture helping solving global challenges. Global research projects show what mankind is able to achieve when working together coherently towards a common goal. So I thank you very much for your attention. And at the end, I want really to say it was really a joy to collaborate with the European Social Survey. I'm happy that Montenegro is in. And at the end, I would like especially to thank to Nenad Celarevic, who confused me at the beginning when he was talking about ESS, because I was thinking about, he's talking about European other infrastructure in Lund, spallation source, European spallation source. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sanja Damjanovic. Thank you for very interesting informations about CS project. We found that it's very interesting in a way, the scientific data, but also very important for our health. So I think that's the thing that I really like the most, because I don't understand much other things because I'm social scientist. Okay, thank you very much. I can also remind you that you can have some put some questions on Q&A, and we will answer on that questions after all our participants finish their presentations. So now we move to our new guest. Our new guest will give us the insight of an organization that is dealing with the cooperation between the youth in the Western Balkans region. It is Maria Bulat from Regional Youth Cooperation Office. Mrs. Maria Bulat is the head of local branch office in Belgrade. So Mrs. Bulat, I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you very much, Natasha, and hello everyone. So as Natasha said, I'm speaking today on behalf of the Regional Youth Cooperation Office, and it is my great pleasure to be with you. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting us. Since I'm not coming from any research structure and I'm not a part of the, let's say, community of practitioners, I guess that my presentation will be somewhat different to what my previous panelists have shared with you. I'm going actually to share with you how do we define the role of research in our work, and how important it is for our work, and how much have we been cooperating actually with the researchers over the past 3 years. And also, I don't have any visual presentations to share with you, so I hope that my voice will be enough to keep your attention, actually. Without further ado, I would just like to briefly say a couple of introductory words about Regional Youth Cooperation Office, maybe for the ones who never heard about us. So Regional Youth Cooperation Office, more known by its abbreviation RYCO, is an international intergovernmental organization founded in 2016 by the 6 Western Balkan governments within the so-called Berlin process, with a mission to actually foster regional youth cooperation in the Western Balkans and contribute to the process of reconciliation in this region. And we are doing that mainly through supporting youth exchanges. Our core business is actually grant making, so we have regular open calls for project proposals that civil society organizations and high schools are submitting to us. And then we are actually selecting the projects to be implemented and somehow contribute to the mobility and exchange of young people in the Western Balkans. We became operational in 2017 after we established our secretariat. We are based in Tirana, so our head office is in Tirana, but we also have local branch offices in all the capitals around the region. When it comes to the topic of this panel, I would like to say that from the very beginning of our work, we actually recognize the importance of cooperating with the researchers community, and very soon after we were established, we actually organized one meeting and gathered the representatives of the research community from around the Western Balkans to actually discuss with them what could be the role of the research in our work, how we can benefit from it, and how we can cooperate together and then streamline maybe the research also in this regard when it comes to youth cooperation. So it was concluded that in these first years, we are going to use the research mainly to inform our strategic planning and to set our strategic objectives, so that we actually use the existing data about young people in this region to shape our objectives and our work, but also to monitor our work and to evaluate the effects that we are making and the impact that we are making on the ground. So this is why we actually started with a cooperation with one of the researchers when actually entering the process of strategic planning of RICO back in 2017 and 2018, when we were developing plan for the period 2018-2021. And the decision was not to make a new baseline study about the needs of young people in the Western Balkans, but actually to use already existing data collected through different research studies that exist. And we actually commissioned this desk review, which will give us an overview of the existing data. It was done by one of your respective colleagues, Mrs. Olivera Komar, and hereby I would also like to compliment her work in this regard that she did for us back then. That desk research, which is called What We Already Know About Young People in the Region, was not only used for our strategic development process, but it's something that we are recommending actually to our beneficiaries and our potential beneficiaries to use it as a reference point when they're actually planning the projects for young people, because it gives a tremendous overview actually of the existing data about their needs, but also more particularly about the data around youth mobility, youth participation, and ethnic distance of young people in the Western Balkans. Apart from that, over the past 3 years, we took part in several research projects, and we actually supported several research projects. The latest one was in cooperation with the University of Vienna, and it was actually commissioned to make a kind of an impact study about our work in the past 3 years. The results of that study are presented in a publication called The Better Region Starts with Youth, which we released last week and which you can find on our website. I will share the address of the website with all of you in the chat later on. So you can have a look on the results of that study. But another important research project that I would like to mention was done in 2018-2019. And we gathered 6 young researchers from the Western Balkans 6 to make an analysis of the effects of the youth exchanges that we are supporting, especially in terms of intercultural learning and dealing with the past with the participants of our youth exchanges. And this project was not only important for us because of its deliverables and the results that researchers shared with us, but moreover because of the process itself. So basically we provided these 6 young researchers with an opportunity to meet each other, to actually travel around the region, to get to know each other better, to share some good practices among themselves, and to work together on this. So they developed the methodology jointly, and then they were split in pairs. So, for example, a young researcher from Serbia was in pair with a young researcher from Albania, a young researcher from Bosnia and Herzegovina was in pair with a young researcher from Kosovo. And by doing that, we were also giving them the possibility to exchange, not only to provide us with relevant data. So this is the approach that we also want to have in the future. So not only to, let's say, use the services of the research community, but also to provide some opportunities for the research community, especially the young researchers in this region. And I can assure you that it's going to happen also next year. What else? I can say that also very important part of our work in the past 2 years has been actually development of the indicators for the monitoring and evaluation system that we will apply from the next year. And we also done this in cooperation with external experts in this field, in the field of monitoring and evaluation. And from next year on, we are also going to establish an internal unit within our secretariat, which will be called REL, Research, Evaluation and Learning, which I think also reinforce our commitment to rely on the research practices and to take this evidence-based approach in our work and knowledge-based approach in our work. And by having these, let's say, in-house competencies for research doesn't mean that we're not going to be in a need of engaging more external researchers, and we are surely going to actually cooperate even more with the research community. And I think that the establishment of this unit within our secretariat and our organization is going to open new doors actually for this collaborative work with the researchers around the region. So having said this, I would like to invite you actually to follow our work, but not only to follow our work, but also to reach out to us with your ideas for potential cooperation. So you know now what is our field of interest, but also we are more open to hear your ideas on how we can make this cooperation even more successful, even more fruitful, and do not hesitate really to get in touch with us. I will also leave my contact information in the chat, but you can also find them on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Bulad. Thank you for giving us a chance to hear much more about your organization, your office, and the plan, and also plans that you already have, and things that you're working on. So now I see that we have more two speakers. So Bojan, the floor is yours. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. Next on the list is Georgi Mura. I don't know if she is present. If
oh
not,
no, it's Defina Bekiri instead of her.
Well, okay, but I still don't see her among the participants. Oh yes, she's here. Well, I cannot give much more details, but I'm looking forward to hear your presentation.
Thank you very much, and sorry that we had to make some changes in the last minute, but our executive director, Mr. Mura, he had some health conditions, so he had to leave, so I'm taking over. I'm Defina Bekiri. I am working with the Western Balkans Fund as a senior program manager. So maybe since we have been quite warned about the time, I will be very brief. So on behalf of Mr. Mura, I would like to thank you all, but at the same time, apologize for the availability of him that he couldn't make to be with us now. Also, I would briefly inform you about the Western Balkans Fund. So the Western Balkans Fund is one of the regional grant-making organizations established by ministries of foreign affairs of 6 contracting parties, as we call them. So Western Balkans Fund became operational in 2015, and it was established in Tirana. So the team that represents the Western Balkans Fund comes all over the region. The main scope of work of ours is grant making. So the support that we provide for civil society organizations, also academia, think tanks, media, and every other institution who is non-profit can ask for grants in our organization. We divide our grants in 3 areas of intervention. One of them is cultural cooperation. The second is education research and education scientific research, and sustainable development. Having said that, through 3 calls for proposals that we have successfully implemented them, and we have managed to cooperate with over 40 universities around the Balkans and beyond in different topics. And most of the research topics that we saw them as a burning topic were quite interesting for us. So in 2020, early 2020, before Corona started booming, we have organized in cooperation with Japan government the first civil society organization summit, where we have invited over 100 representatives of CSOs, but there what was the most important thing is that we have given a specific space to think tanks and research initiatives, because we saw that we do not have enough information about certain issues around the Western Balkans. So we wanted to see from the first-hand experience how much we can support think tanks and how much we can contribute together to the policy making. So the great result came out of this summit. All 25 think tanks coming from all over the Western Balkans agreed to establish the WB6 think tank platform, and they have foreseen Western Balkans Fund as a natural, let's say, as a natural body that could endorse this platform. So this year we have continued working closely with think tanks. Again, with Japanese government, we are closing one of the next corporations that is going to be in support to the think tank initiatives to see how much it impacted the CSOs, how much CSOs have been impacted by the COVID-19 and where the help should be focused for the next year. So WBF more or less managed to include a lot think tanks and research initiatives coming from the university side or think tanks, but for us, we saw that what is still missing is that soft connectivity. Like we don't want to see cooperation among universities or think tanks only for the project, for the sake of project, because for our grants, you cannot apply as individual entity, you have to apply in partnership. So we don't want that to end once the project is done. We want to have sustainability. And that also creates it gives a lot of impact to the soft connectivity, which we see each year that in Western Balkans is not at the desired level, or mobility. So what we are aiming for is to strengthen the cooperation with the universities, and mostly also for our team to learn, because sometimes we receive project proposals that are, for example, in nanotechnology, and we are not expert on nanotechnology or like topics like that heavy. So we are keen to continue cooperating with universities, with the researchers, with think tanks, and we would like to be there for you as much as we can, because being established by ministries of foreign affairs, we are very close to the policy makers, so we can lobby for what is needed for our region to be better. So I think we can make a good use of our cooperation. So I would like you to see our website and to follow our posts, and soon enough we will start having calls, and maybe one of your ideas can be one of the beneficiaries of our calls. So, and we would like to cooperate with you in the region and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Before we start discussion and open the floor, our last guest at this session is Graham Lynch, and I would like to ask him to introduce himself and give us his presentation, his talk.
Yep, hello everybody. My name's Graham Lynch, and I'm the Dissemination and Communications Lead for the GRIP and RING projects. And just like the last speaker, I'm also a bit of a last-minute substitution. My colleague and the project manager, Erna, was supposed to be giving this presentation, but she was feeling unwell today, so I've just been sprung from the bench at the last minute. So just to wish her well, and hopefully I do the projects on justice, and just trying to give you an overview, a general overview of what the projects are about. So, and I'm also conscious of the time, so we'll just get straight into it. So, the idea behind GRIP, the GRIP project, is basically to implement different RRI interventions and actions into 5 maritime research performing funding organizations. And the basic structure of how GRIP intends to implement these interventions includes several steps. First of all, to record the starting point, we issued a survey to all the demo sites and evaluated RRI maturity level for all 5 integrated sites. The data also served as our baseline and as our source for identification of interventions. So from a comprehensive list of interventions categorized according to the RRI pillars, sites we're going to select several interventions to implement. For the process of implementation, GRIP project assists the sites in the creation of action plans for the selected interventions. These action plans are co-created with the site's working groups, implementing best practices from other sites, facilitating mutual learning. We're also setting indicators for the monitoring of this process in order to track the cultural change within the demo sites and to evaluate the rate of success for each of the selected interventions. The process of monitoring and evaluation, it's an ongoing continuous process. And so I've just got a couple of results here that just sort of indicate a little bit of that research that was done from the and the feedback that we got. The results from the survey indicate room for improvements on gender equality, inclusion, and citizen science, including citizens in the work of research performing organizations. A lot of the findings here would be in line with what we would have expected to find from these organizations. The next slide has a couple of other additional findings. I think one of the more interesting observations was the relatively high percentage of disagreeing responses regarding equal inclusion of men and women in research and innovations teams. We also see from the results that there's a general consensus that more open communication with the public on obtained research results is a pretty important requirement. So the process of drafting a plan, it's a pretty complex process, including several workshops for the refinement of the plan together with individual sites, co-creation with all sites, and inclusion of stakeholders in this process of consultation during the AP development. And so the current list of interventions right now consists of 6 group interventions, 74 sub-interventions, and it provides a menu of possible interventions that case studies can subsequently trial over the project period and beyond. So they're cross-cutting and covering all 5 keys of RRI in an integrated manner. And these include policies, practices, processes, and initiatives to embed the dimensions of RRI in the governance of daily practices of the institution, as well as ways to systematically engage and collaborate with stakeholders and funding bodies in a meaningful way. So how do we actually envision the process of culture and change in our 5 investigated demo sites? This slide here just sort of shows the process that we're looking at. We begin by building institutional leadership and support. Next, we look to embed the RRI in the institutional government framework, and that's followed by the development of institutional knowledge, skills, and awareness of RRI. Next up, we are establishing structures to facilitate sustainable engagement with societal stakeholders, and then, as you'll see, then we embed it in the system. So, in terms of the entire process, during the entire process, and the monitoring and evaluation will be done. Starts with an audit and setting up a baseline to record where we started. You see the stages here, then it's followed by an action plan, 10-year action plan for further embedding RRI interventions in institutions. There's the implementation, followed by the completion, and then obviously the post-completion stage. And so we are now entering pretty much, it's the last 5 months of the RING project. During the past 2.5 years, we've issued a worldwide survey on RRI and sustainable development goals and collected over 2,500 responses. And the analysis of the responses has been ongoing for the past year and a half. And what we're looking to do really is identify numerous best practices and competitive advantages by the implementation of these RRI strategies. So, at this point, and I'm just aware of time, the organisers kindly allowed us to kind of introduce a kind of a sister project, the Ring project, which I just alluded to there. Rather than take you through more slides, we do have a video that would be beneficial in simply showing the origins, aims and benefits and membership of the Ring community. And so I suppose I'm just asking the organisers, do we have time to play that video? It's about 3 minutes long. And if not, I'm happy to share the slides afterwards and people can look at the video themselves if that would be preferable.
Yeah, let's see the video.
Yeah, great. So like I said, it's about 3 minutes long, so I'll play that and then I'll wrap up then the presentation. Thank you.
Science has significantly influenced the development of the world we live in, improved the daily lives of millions of people in Europe and around the world. But we must be responsible with research and innovation ideas. Without well-defined rules, guidelines, and contributions from different societal actors, the true potential of research and innovation can be misaligned with societal needs, untapped, or may even endanger certain social groups or the very nature of our planet. We must foster a better collaboration with society. There is what Ring Project, which stands for Responsible Research and Innovation Network globally, does. Ring stimulates mutual learning and collaboration with society in responsible research and innovation. Responsible research and innovation, RRI, implies that researchers, citizens, policymakers, businesses, and other relevant organizations work together to better align the whole research and innovation process, its outcomes with the values, needs, and expectations of society. Ring favors an inclusive and democratic approach in research and innovation by engaging with a wide range of societal actors to better understand a range of perspectives, frameworks, and global views. A certain methodology is needed to drive and achieve great progress in line with the recommendation on science and scientific researchers. The EU and the United Nations have been instrumental in developing and promoting the Global Sustainable Development Goals. SDGs are important for all countries, but may differ geographically in terms of importance and priority. For instance, the issue of climate change can only be addressed on the global stage. We must align responsible research and innovation with the Sustainable Development Goals to provide a common global denominator for RRI improvement and assist ground challenges globally. We want to transform the scientific environment to one in which decisions are made from the bottom up, involving everyone who is influenced by or has an impact on research and innovation. That is why we established the Ring community, the leading global community working together to develop the responsible research and innovation ecosystem, influence on policies, and voice your opinion in legislation. Ring aims to establish and cultivate country by country a true community of practice. We are striving to learn from, share, and connect outstanding research practices all over the world to improve the quality and impact of scientific research on a global level. Because when we connect the potential of the whole world, we can address the biggest challenges of this century. With the help of UNESCO and the International Consortium of Research Staff Associations, Ring Project is developing a suite of tools for countries to better perform their 4-yearly monitoring and reporting requirements for the recommendation.
Apologies now, hold on. This is the
on science and scientific researchers. Lithuania will be among the first.
Okay, apologies about that, guys. It's connectivity issues from working at home, I'm afraid. But as I said, I'm quite happy to share the slide and information. There's another slide as well with contact details at the end of it. And I suppose, look, from my own perspective in terms of communications, both projects are always looking to align with projects with similar objectives, and so I'd warmly welcome any correspondence for future synergy on projects. As I said, I'm happy to share the slides with everybody afterwards. So again, thank you for listening and for the opportunity as well just to speak about these projects.
Thanks a lot. And now we can spend the rest of our session time on some questions and answers. Just to add, to use the privilege of being coordinator, it's really impressive how many initiatives there are to promote collaboration. I was not really aware of that, and I think that certainly is one of the benefits of a meeting like this. So I would like to open the floor and let the attendees and everyone to give us comments and ask questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bojan. Now we've received some questions. So I would like to, just read one question. The question is for Sanja Damjanovic from Rory Fitzgerald. He said, what lessons from the development of CEAST might there be for strengthening the ESS ERIC in the Western Balkans?
Thanks for this question. I would say it is very important to have at least one lead country to continuously promote and propagate importance of research infrastructures and of international cooperation. I must say I was maybe lucky because I was leading CEAST project, but I was lucky being politician on one side and scientist on the other side. But I think we can explore this country, which can really boost importance of cooperation. On the other hand, what is really helping us in CEAST, we have a board, and we have, each country has 2 members of the board, 1 politician and 1 scientist. And I think this is really, really great. I don't know how this is functioning with ERIC model, but in politics, everything is changing. There is no conservation law, but it's very, very important to keep good scientists in the board to steer and continuity. So this is the answer from my side.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sanja. Now we have one question that can be for many of you, for many of our guests. It comes from Olivera Komar, and now I will read this question. So, looking from the outside and from your experience, what would you say the main obstacles for teams from Western Balkan to join large research programs such as CSES or World Value Survey were? What should be done to increase their participation in the future? So this question is for Dave, Ksenia, maybe Professor Simkus.
I could start.
Also, Maria, okay.
There's certainly great scholars and people that know survey methodology really well within the region. So I think we have the scholarly resources to have good participation throughout the Western Balkans. I think some of the challenges that are faced are also faced in other parts of the world. Funding is really hard to arrive by for social science. And also I think when it comes to infrastructure, Albert said this earlier, but sometimes it's hard to ramp up for surveys of this sort. I see this in lots of parts of the world, but when you're building a survey data collection infrastructure, you need regular business to be able to do that. You can't just sort of draw it up out of nowhere. I mean, you can pull together students and cobble together a sample and, do your very best, but usually the comparative surveys are looking for more permanent survey infrastructures that can ramp up quickly and have established methods and professional interviewers, and that's really hard if you don't have stable funding. So I don't know that it's unique to the Western Balkans, but whenever we've been able to achieve funding in countries or where there are established survey infrastructures already in certain countries, like Albania and Montenegro as particular examples, then there's really no barrier to entry altogether. It's just a matter of identifying people that have common interests and the ability to carry out these functions. And it's been very rewarding where we've been successful in that regard. But I think the struggles are more about infrastructure than they are participating in our survey in general.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Professor Simkus, maybe?
I want to ask some questions that are slightly off of exactly what that question was about. And in our project, one of the things that that was difficult was after we had the data, it was disappointing how difficult it was to get a lot of analysis done by people in the local countries for several obvious reasons. One was that everybody's salaries were so low that a lot of people had to have 2 or 3 jobs, and you could make a lot more money working for the National Bank or doing a short, simple report for an international organization than you could do really scholarly analysis of the data. Another problem was that our data were made so they could be joined to the ISSP surveys, to earlier Yugoslav surveys, and so on. But doing that is so much work that there are not so many people that have the resources for being able to branch it out to the connections that were possible. And then the third one is that when it's very important to people to make publications in international journals, there's a problem of whether or not people think it's important to do something that includes the Western Balkan countries that, in a sense, you're lucky if there's a civil war or if there's genocide or a major transition in politics, because then that's a interesting theoretical problem internationally. But in terms of just more gradual differences between countries, it's hard to have international journals so interested in including specific countries if it's simply adding another 7 countries to 20 or 25 that you have already. So I imagine the problems remain, right?
Yeah, we can see that. So maybe Ksenia Kizilova.
Yes, thank you very much. I would agree with David Howell that indeed there is no lack of capacity in the region. There are many great scholars, but also there are many data collection centers. There are many research institutes who could offer conducting survey for CSS or the world value survey. Probably one of the spheres where we could put more effort, both us and the local scholars, would be to promote the project, the international projects more. This should be done both from our side, from the Secretariat of the World Value Survey, but also by the scholars on the ground. It's very important to have a local scholar who's highly motivated to get the project implemented. Usually in many countries where the World Value Survey has been successful, we have a cycle. There is one wave of the survey conducted, there's many publications, there are presentations, discussion in the media, and this sort of reinforces the interest to the project and justifies also granting the funds for the next wave of the program. In case of the Balkan countries, in the World Value Survey in particular, there was some interruption of the time series. So at present, it would be important to put a greater effort to break this ice and to get, for example, this survey done for the first time, and then presentation of the findings to the public is likely to generate greater interest and help to conduct the subsequent rounds of the program more smoothly and easily. And of course, the major obstacle all our survey teams in all world countries and regions struggle is the funding, because 60% of our members, they need to raise funding themselves. This can be academic funds, this can be funds from the private sector, from NGOs, etc. But there are quite many surveys conducted everywhere, so there is a competition, and not all funding applications are sometimes successful, even if it's a great project. So this would be probably the 3 main reasons.
Thank you, Ksenia Kizilova, for your answer. Is there anyone else that can answer on that question?
I might say one small thing.
Okay.
There are a lot of survey data collection firms in the region, but sometimes the standards that we're looking for aren't as commercially viable. Probability at all stages, in person, face-to-face with good coverage, You know, when you look under the surface of data collection methods in different companies, they do things because they have to preserve the commercial viability of their effort, because most of their consumers are not us. So when I talk about the viability of data collection firms, I mean ones that have an academic orientation, or where we are one of their main customers. You know, they have to look at us as someone that can help along their endeavor. And if it's not already an academic associated with it, they may not be thinking of some of the quality standards that we are. But it seems, at least from a third-party perspective, that there are less of these data collection units associated with universities or think tanks, for instance, right? And those are people that might share some of the same methodological concerns that we have. But it's very hard for a university to support a data collection unit if they can't keep their interviewers regularly employed. So maybe across the WB-ESS and CSES and ESES, you know, we have the opportunity to better support these data collection units, which can collect the highest quality of data, but it requires some international cooperation in that regard, and also some local interest for those types of surveys, which honestly are just more expensive too. I mean, data collection costs different amounts in different countries, but it still costs a lot relative to the country to do the types of quality surveys that we include. And I think that's a real challenge we have to consider, because all of these data collections are valuable, but people look to our academic data collections to understand where other data collections go wrong, or to have the real story of the population and have truly representative samples in ways that academics tend to enjoy in the West. But isn't quite as much of an assumption in other parts of the world. So this is something I'm regularly interested in, but a way we could get together and challenge ourselves. It's not that every company has to run these more expensive surveys of especially high quality, but we need to help people understand the value of science and the necessity to run some of these sorts of studies for the work that we do with impacts on policy and citizens, and obviously all of our careers.
Okay, thank you. We can see that funding is a big issue here. Do you have some other comments? Maybe questions to?
Well, since this is my space, one thing I want to make a request for is, there are common questions for all of the ESS surveys, but there's a limited number of questions that can be added in each country to the ESS questions. And for some of us who would really like to see comparisons of sometimes just 5 questions from former Yugoslavia before, you know, the changes through the beginning of the century to now, adding 5, 10, 15 questions would allow some really quite interesting comparisons across time. And I hope there's some possibility to squeeze those in. I know that it's very difficult, the competition for these extra questions, and you can't overdo it.
Okay. Any other comment? We still have a lot of time. so I'm invited to make some questions.
So what's interesting? It was very interesting to be able to visit, you know, personally, 2, sometimes 3 of the main survey organizations in each country, and to talk to the main methodological people who were involved in it, even, you know, like the team leaders organizing the people doing the interviews, and then to visit the computer labs at the universities that were teaching data analysis, and to see, you know, what was going on with their, you know, machinery and their methods and so on. It was really a unique opportunity to visit, you know, the main universities in all 7 countries and do this. I'd be very curious what things are like now. I hope for improvement. Sometimes I'm not so sure. It's not easy.
when it comes to your research, Professor, we know that ESS and World Value Survey has open access to data. What about the data that you have, where we can find that data and other people who are interested?
Well, the combined file for all of the variables in all of the countries is held in the Norwegian NSD, the Norwegian Data Service in Bergen, and anybody can request a copy of those data in the code book. And no one has had any problem with that. I and you know, my partners don't deal with individual requests so much because it's very helpful to have one organization keeping track of how many requests there are from the data, you know, for the data and where they go, because it helps possibilities of such a project later if we can show a lot of use and it, you know, we all move around and have changes in our lives and careers, and so it's good to have a research organization that, you know, handles the recording of this distribution, but it's really quite open to everyone. In the project, we did the surveys in each country, and as soon as the data for each country was available, then the students and academic professors, you know, who are involved in the project had access to the data for their country. And that took us quite a long time to merge and clean the data for all of the countries. But after we did that, then that was available to project meter members. And then approximately the time that we had our, you know, first main book from the project accepted, then it was available to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Sanja Damjanovic, do you have some comment on this?
Yes, so I would just want to say how important data are. So I discuss about the topic cancer, which is one of the top social challenge today. But it's really sad if you look at the region of Western Balkans, for example, we don't have a cancer register. So we are really missing that data. And what we have, and if you compare to the rest of Europe, you can see that, for example, statistics of mortality or incident ratio is in our region factor of 2 or 3 times higher than in the rest of the region. And so this your role could be very important here. Why? Because if you have cancer register, you can also share, communicate your data with your colleagues from all over Europe. And I think we really need social innovation, at least the term social innovation to be more pronounced in our region, because this really brings us a lot. So I would see ESS as a promoter of importance that every country in our region should have at least this cancer register, and that would be great also for us.
One of the wonderful things about the European Social Survey is that when you're teaching students to analyze data, you know, for the countries that are included in it, even if the ESS data for that particular country is somewhat old, still they, you know, you have a really good data set and they can do comparisons to other countries. And so that's just wonderful. And the thing that, you know, that we hope for our data, there are a few places like, again, Bosnia and Herzegovina, where there really aren't such data available for, you know, using for teaching. In Albania, you can do it. In Kosovo, you can do it. In Serbia, you can do it. Croatia, but not everywhere.
Yeah, we can agree. Okay, we have more 7 minutes, so you can use it if you want. Anyone else? I don't see any questions here in Q&A.
I would, just on the funding thing, I would encourage people to collaborate. I mean, there's partners potentially in this panel and watching this that have funding and interest in data and things like that. And there's a lot of people with the scholarly expertise to continue this tradition of data that we've heard about here. And it's really not hard to join these comparative studies, and they're quite supportive organizations overall. But when it comes to fundraising, sometimes we find more success together than individually. If we're always raising money for one more election study or one more data collection, there's a very high fixed cost to that. but there are funding organizations where if you come in as a region or a couple of 3 different countries together, you find more possibilities for more stable and more institutionalized funding. And I would encourage people to consider that. We regularly have conferences in the Balkans. We're very interested in the region, and we've had a lot of good collaborators there. But you know, the funding question sometimes is best addressed together and with interested parties rather than in isolation. So I congratulate you on this conference, and I hope that leads to some of this cooperation that I'm talking about.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your invitation. Okay, if we don't have any other question or comment, I'm inviting you for tomorrow's session that starts at 9:45. It will be also interesting. So if you want, you can join us tomorrow. And if we don't have any questions and suggestions more, now I'll end up this today work. Okay, hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I'll be able to
Thank
just
you.
keep going tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Albert. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.